Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So the Master and Vijay Goswami, the conversation which we were discussing in the last class between Sri Ramakrishna and Vijay Goswami, in that we find that Sri Ramakrishna was indicating that ego is the cause of our bondage. So without destroying that ego, we can never have spiritual illumination. Actually, the be all and end all of our spiritual journey is the eradication of the ego. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, when shall I be free? When I cease to be. So this I, the ceasing of the I, the annihilation of the I, is the sanam and the bonum of the entire spiritual journey. So on those lines, we find Vijay is having some questions. So with that, we will start our discussion. Vijay, if without destroying the I, a man cannot get rid of attachment to the world and consequently cannot experience samadhi, then it would be wise for him to follow the path of Brahma Jnana to attain samadhi. If the I persists in the path of devotion, then one should rather choose the path of knowledge. So here we find that it has been indicated that in Jnana Yoga, in the path of knowledge, where one in samadhi get established in that realization that he is Brahman, he is not the Atman, he is not this limited individuality. Atman is Brahman. The Atman merges in the Brahman. So what actually this Atman and Brahman, these two technical words means? To understand in a very simple way that I am aware of the witness consciousness. I know when I am thinking, it is someone behind my thought who is witnessing my thought. When I am seeing, there is someone who is witnessing my perception, my seeing. So whatever I am doing, there is in the present language of neurology, it is called the qualia factor of the consciousness, that someone is constantly witnessing whatever I am doing. Now, if I close my eyes, ears, all the perceptions, everything, I just stop my interaction with the world, I will find still unceasingly the sensation that is going on within me is I cannot stop that. I know I am. I can cut off my interaction with the world. That I am seeing, I am hearing, all those I can cut off. I can isolate myself in a room which is totally sound insulated, light insulated, dark room. But can I get rid of that sensation? I know. That is constantly there. But that sensation of I, you also will agree, has a sense of locality. I know that I am seated somewhere, and from that center of my psychophysical existence, that constant thought in the form of I is emanating. So Swami Vivekananda used to say very nicely that this limited individuality is is a circle which has a center but which has no circumference. Its circumference is infinite. It's a circle with a center but circumference is infinity. Why circumference is infinity? Because with my thought I can travel anywhere. If someone says that this is the last galaxy, that science have never indicated any galaxy as a large galaxy, just for our assumption, we say that this is the last galaxy. With our mind, I can travel even beyond that. I can even think that something is beyond that galaxy. So nothing can stop my thought. With that thought, I can travel anywhere. So the I, which is emanating from the center of my personality, has a center, and it's a circle which has no circumference. So this limited individuality is a circle with a center but which has no circumference. Now when one goes to that state of samadhi, by going beyond the mind, so we can say that the idea of the identity is still there, amness is still there, existence is still there. It's not that we get totally annihilated. Amness is there. But that amness is beyond time, space, causation. It loses its locality. That's why Swamiji is very nicely saying that Brahman, the ultimate reality, is a circle. It is also a circle, which again has no circumference, but whose center is everywhere. How nicely he has defined these two. Because he himself is a man of realization. He went to that state. So how precisely he can describe that state. So what's the idea? That this idea of this locality vanishes. The idea of time vanishes. You're in the eternal present. You have no locality. But there's an amness, there's an existence. So with the destruction of the I, once you relate to that non-dual conscious principle, so that's only possible when the I, this limited idea of individuality, has vanished. In the words of Sri Ramakrishna, it's just like a salt doll going to measure the depth of the ocean. The moment it touches the ocean, it merges in the ocean. How can it ever measure the depth of the ocean? So it just becomes one with it. So that's the thing which is Jnana Yoga, that emergence of the ego in the absolute, has been spoken of. But in Bhakti Marga we find the I is there. God is, I am, the relation, this is eternal companionship with the divine through devotion is there. So the question of dissolution of ego in Bhakti doesn't come. In Jnana there is a question of dissolution of the ego. But Sri Ramakrishna has indicated, as long as the ego is there, in the previous discussion, we will find in some way or other, as long as the ego is there, it has its negativities, the complications, the negative effects are there in the form of pride, arrogance, desire. Is all related to this limited I. So when Sri Ramakrishna has indicated that I is eradicated only through samadhi in Jnana Yoga, in Bhakti Yoga the I remains. So naturally Vijaya Goswami asks that question. If without destroying the I, a man cannot get rid of attachment to the world and consequently cannot experience samadhi, then it would be wise for him to follow the path of Brahma Jnana to attain samadhi. If the I persists in the path of devotion, then one should rather choose the path of knowledge. So, we will find a wonderful thing, that it's not that Sri Ramakrishna never prescribes the path of Jnana Yoga to anyone. To Naren specifically, he always instructed in the path of Jnana. Narendranath, when he is to come, very nice he is to say that he is my in-law's house. So most of the people thought that okay, Naren is very much is favorite to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna is very fond of him. So that's why he's saying that he is my in-laws house. But the real meaning is something wonderful. What's the real meaning? That Naren is actually established in Jnana Yoga. How can we relate this idea that he is the in-laws? So in the olden society, especially in India, we find whenever the girl is born, the parent knows that I will have to educate her, I will have to grow her, she has to grow up, I have to nourish her, I have to educate her, I have to really, what you say, that in all way help her to develop so many skills. But after all, she is not going to stay with us. After the marriage, she will be going to the in-laws house. So that's the tradition. That used to be the tradition in the olden days. That has to be, the girl never stays with the parent. The boy must stay with the parent. In the patriarchal society where the father's business is inherited by the son, in those days, the concept of nuclear family was not there. The son continued with the father so that he can inherit his property and go on with the business or the farming, whatever the father does. So son stays with the father, but the daughter, after marriage, goes to the in-laws house. So all the preparations the father does for the daughter, educating her, nourishing her, everything is after all meant for sending her to the in-laws house. Now Sri Ramakrishna, in his life, in his sadhana, in this period of spiritual journey, one after other, he went on getting established in the various paths of spiritual journey. He started with the dualistic religion, and at last Totapuri came. And it was under this guidance of Totapuri, at last he reached the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, established in Jnana Yoga. So all his previous preparations were as if just a preparation for getting established in the Jnana Yoga, in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. All those various sadhanas, all these various practices were preparations to get established there. So now you will understand that for Ramakrishna, in-laws house is the attainment of the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. That's where, just like a daughter, in all ways she is being nurtured, she is being educated, at last to be sent to the in-laws house. Sri Ramakrishna is indicating that for me, all my sadhana was just a preparation for getting established in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And when Naren came, when the future Vivekananda, the Naren came, Sri Ramakrishna could as if scan the core of one's being. He found he's already as if established there. A little instruction, a little help is required, and he will just realize his real nature. So he found that he's already as if established there. So that's why he says he's my in-laws house. So all the preparations which I took to get established there, he's as if already established there. So for Naren, the path of Jnana Yoga was there. But as we told, Sri Ramakrishna has the capacity to scan the inner being, the core of one's being, the mental bent, the attitude, the temperament of a person. Vijay was of a devotional temperament. Sri Ramakrishna knew, though he is here as if preferring the path of Jnana Yoga, that's what he's saying, that if I cannot be annihilated through the path of Bhakti Yoga, if it can be annihilated only in the path of Jnana Yoga, then why not try to follow the path of knowledge? So that's his question. But Sri Ramakrishna, as we were indicating, he knew that he is of a devotional temperament. So the following instructions which Ramakrishna will be giving to Vijay will be on those lines. He will be encouraging him in the path of Bhakti Yoga, as that is the temperament for him. That is the attitude of Vijay for his spiritual, that is the mental bent for him. So accordingly he will be instructing. So what Sri Ramakrishna says is something very interesting, and that follows. So the master, it is true that one or two can get rid of the I through samadhi, but these cases are very rare. You may indulge in thousands of reasonings, but still the I comes back. You may cut the peepal tree to the very root today, but you will notice a sprout springing up tomorrow. Therefore, if the I must remain, let the rascal remain as the servant I. As long as you live, you should say, O God, Thou art the master and I am thy servant. The I that fills, I am the servant of God and his devotee, does not injure one. Sweet things cause acidity of the stomach, no doubt, but sugar candy is an exception. So here Sri Ramakrishna very specifically saying, yes, with devotion it's very difficult to get rid of I. But this I, the I of a devotee, is something different from the I of a worldly person. This I is not going to harm you. And he's saying that any sweet thing, if you eat any sweet thing, it generally creates acidity. But sugar candy, in Ayurveda, it's a prescription that if you have acidity, you just dilute the sugar candy in water and drink that water. It actually acts as an antacid. So though it is sweet, but its effect is something different from other sweet. So that's why he's saying sugar candy is an exception. So what actually is he's saying? That though devotion is also a type of attachment, that the ego persists. I am attached to the divine. But this I is not going to harm you, just like any other I. Why? What's the psychological reason behind it? So as we discussed so many times, so these discussions has to be brought to the context, and then these words become meaningful. So it may appear to be repetition, but these repetitions are actually helping us to find the context of the words which Sri Ramakrishna is saying. What's the discussion which we already had? Is the idea of that how we develop obsession for things. So today's necessity is tomorrow's obsession. As we told that it's the neuroplasticity of the mind. That what I do repeatedly again and again out of necessity, this repetition creates as if a path in the mind, and once the path is created, I forget the necessity. Just to do it becomes my obsession. So just so many times we give that example that all our so-called attachments have developed that way. A small child is not drinking milk, you add a little sugar, it drinks. Why? That innate likeness for sweetness? Because as we know that for generations, when we were food gatherers, not food producers, thus our ancestors used to go to the forest and they found that anything sweet doesn't kill us. Other tests there is no guarantee, but sweet, it won't kill us. It will nourish us. So it was out of necessity they were in search of sweet fruits, sweet herbs, sweet roots. And this repeated pursuit for the sweet things as if created a path in the mind. And this wiring has created obsession. Now we forget the necessity of the sweet. Just to have sweet things has become my tremendous attachment. It has become something genetic. It has been passed down through the genes, this obsession. And that's the cause of all our lifestyle diseases, you will find. Similarly, the Sri Ramakrishna, the Gospel again and again says, Kamini Kanchan is Maya. Lust and gold is Maya. The same thing. Without lust, without gold, life is not possible. Wealth is required to sustain ourselves. Lust helps in propagation of life. But you will find all the crime at last boils down to these two, lust and wealth. You just read the newspaper, go to any news channel, you just hear of any crime. At last you will find these are the two main reasons. So what has happened? Necessity has become obsession. So that's how our mind is hooked to the limitations. It's the limitation of the mind. So it takes us spirally downwards gradually. That today's necessity becomes tomorrow's obsession. So now why are bringing this discussion here? So now our so-called limited I is attached to the world with all these obsessions. Now, once I get somehow aware of the spiritual dimension of my life, I resort to some practice. Those other these all attachments are there, but now I have started my spiritual practices. I try to repeat the name of the Lord every day at particular time, repeat my prayers, the same thing I go on doing every day. So this repetition again creates a path in my mind. It takes time, but it happens. And then I suddenly find that I have developed a love for this practice. A devotion has developed for the divine. So this also is an attachment. But why Sri Ramakrishna is saying this attachment is not to be considered as an attachment? Because this type of attachment for the divine, instead of taking us spirally downwards, takes us spirally upwards to at last liberate us. How? So this is the thing which we have discussed again and again, that what happens, all the other attachments which we have developed in the process of evolution out of necessity is something dependent on some external thing. It is extraneous. All our attachments, whether it is that all our attachments at last can be divided into three categories: putraishana, vittaishana, yashaishana. That your desire for progeny, desire for wealth, desire for name and fame. So all these desires you will find is dependent on something external. So as a result, as long as I do not get them, there is a fear that I may not get them. Though I may try my best, I may not attain them. And once I attain them, again the fear is there. What's the fear? That what I have attained, I may not return. I may lose. Whether it is wealth, whether it is relation, whether it is name and fame, the position in my life. So the fear factor is always there. Concern is always there. Worry is always there. But when I become aware of the spiritual dimension of my existence, and through devotion I try to relate to it, through practice, gradually as I do repeatedly. At the beginning it is willful, but as I do repeatedly, it is the function of the mind. What I do repeatedly, it gets wired and I develop devotion. Now this devotion, this attachment is something different from all other attachments. How? So these were all extra, it was dependent on something external. And this attachment is something intrinsic. I sit down, close my eyes, think of God, and I find a devotion welling up from my heart. It is something intrinsic. Can anyone take it away from me? No. It is not dependent on something external. It is something intrinsic. As it is intrinsic, there is no question of clash. That when I am trying to get a job where 100 has applied, only 10 are going to get the job, so 90 won't get. If I get, you don't get. Whether it is wealth, whether it is relation, whether it is name and fame, it is a clash with other personality, as it is something extraneous. So there is always concern and there is a clash. We are always as if in the crossroads. Our roads are like traffic roads. If I get the green signal, the other is bound to get the red signal. So there cannot be a free passage. But this new path which I have created is like a freeway. It is not in clash with anyone, it is intrinsic. When I start developing love for God, you start developing love for God, there is no question that my love is going in any way to hamper or uh, disturb your love for God. When A loves B and C loves B, there is a question of clash. But here there is no clash. God is universal. Everyone can love Him. So as there is no clash, for the first time I have developed an obsession where I will find it is intrinsic, and as a result there is no question of fear of losing. Once I get it, it is always with me. As Mirabai very nicely, that couplet is there, Kharche nahi koi, chor na leve, dina dina bharat savaya. It never gets, I have got such a wealth, it never gets expended. No one can steal it away from me. The more I practice, the more the groove in my mind gets deepened, and the more intense is my life. So the more the devotion. So there is no question of expending. It goes on increasing. So now we will find this I, this ego, which is related to the divine through devotion, is qualitatively different from the love which I have developed for the things of the world. This I is constantly a result of my worries, tension, clash, competition. And this I, which is related to the devotion, it is allowing me to dive deep within me, to get cut off from the world. How? As this is qualitatively different, what happens? Just in our day-to-day life, if I have to go from one destination to other, and I know the road is having a lot of traffic, there's a lot of signals there. So what I will do, I know there is another option, there is a freeway. If there is a freeway, why should I go through the traffic? My natural tendency will be to go through the freeway. So same thing happens in the spiritual journey. Once I develop this path, where I is related to God through devotion, it is like a freeway. There is no question of clash, no worries, no tension. When that has been created, why should I traverse through this traffic road? The question never comes. I have this option. And as a result, what happens? My devotion never coexists with the love of the world. It never coexists. I will be traversing this freeway alone, living out all those paths which I traversed for lives together previously. But now I have developed this. So they all start falling off. This love alone becomes my pursuit. I will be developing more and more love for the divine. The other thing starts falling off. Till now, all other loves were coexisting. But once I develop the love for the divine, it cannot coexist with the other. Because this is like the freeway. The others are like passing through the traffic. Why should I go through them? And my natural tendency is to pass through this. So they all start falling off. I become more and more attuned to the divine. And not only that, when I become attuned to the divine, it becomes more and more intense. So it is not only qualitative, even quantitatively, this love is something which I have never experienced in my life. It is very intense. That's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if you want to compare divine love with the worldly love, know it for certain, it is threefold. It is actually the addition of three most intense worldly love. What you used to say? There's a chaste wife's love for the husband, that love. A miserly person's love for the wealth, that love. You add up. And a mother's love for the child. You add up these three. The intensity which you can imagine, that's the intensity of the divine love. So quantitatively as well as qualitatively, you find the I, which is related through devotion to the divine, is something totally different from the I which is related to the world through all the worldly endeavors. So that's why now you will understand why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that though this I is written through the devotion, this I is not going to harm you. Instead of taking you spirally downwards, it will take you spirally upwards. So it is totally of different nature. Though still the I persists, though still the question of attachment is there, but this is totally different. So now let us try to understand that what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. Again, the reading this one. As long as you live, you should say, O God, thou art the master, and I am thy servant. The I that fills, I am the servant of God, I am his devotee, does not injure one. Sweet things cause acidity of the stomach, no doubt, but sugar candy is an exception. So these are the words of Sri Ramakrishna, which we try to understand that through the distinction between worldly attachment and devotion. That's how this I, which is related to the God through devotion, is not going to harm us, it is going to liberate us. Sri Ramakrishna continues, the path of knowledge is very difficult. One cannot obtain knowledge unless one gets rid of the feeling that one is the body. In the Kali Yuga, the life of man is centered on food. He cannot get rid of the feeling that he is the body and the ego. Therefore, the path of devotion is prescribed for this cycle. This is an easy path. You will attain God if you sing his name and glories and pray to him with a longing heart. There is not the least doubt about it. So here, that's the limitation of translation. So here in the English translation, it is mentioned that in the Kali Yuga, the life of man is centered on food. The exact word Sri Ramakrishna is saying is Annagata Prana. So translation is centered around food. It may make us feel that we cannot, do much austerity. We have to take food. We cannot fast. Actual meaning is not that. Annagata Prana, it has a very interesting meaning. What it means? So again, we will find that it is speaking of some paradox in the evolution. So how culture came into existence, civilization, culture, religion, these are the product of leisure. You will find that the food gatherers, our ancestors as food gatherers were so busy. Morning they are going out throughout the day. They were in search of food. Evening they are coming back with whatever they have gathered. They eat, they take rest. Again, the next day they have to move out. It was a life of struggle. It was a life full of dangers, perils. And the moment they learned agriculture, a wonderful thing happened. They started living in village. For a part of the year, they started cultivating the land, getting the yield out of it, and that they will store for the rest of the year. And now they found for the first time, they are enjoying something called leisure. Now with leisure, one thing happens, our mind has to always be engaged in something or other. So when we have leisure, our mind is free. So what to do with that free mind? So then this culture came into existence. Sublime thoughts, art, music, because we have leisure. And when they came, we actually found that some people are more prone to these things. So the society said, you be busy with that. The so-called production of food and all, we will take care. Whatever food we produce, that will be surplus. So we will be sharing it with you. And whatever you get from your contemplation, from your art, from your music, that we enjoy when we are not having any work. So that's how that exchange started and the culture started developing. Very interesting, in the process of evolution, it is the leisure which brought the culture. And the entire evolution we will find what is our attempt to reduce our work. That how through technology, through inventions, we can reduce our work so that we can get more and more leisure. But we will find a wonderful paradox. In the present society, with the technology, our work has really reduced. What to speak of agriculture, even at home. You have your washing machine, you have the dishwasher, you have every appliances which can help you to get your work done so that you have more leisure. But the paradox is, with all those, that's what we were trying to get more and more leisure, we will find that the society at present is constantly in rush. In our attempt to get more leisure, we have no leisure at all. From morning to evening, we are busy. And if we are not busy, if we are not going out for work, we cannot earn our livelihood. In our attempt to get more leisure, we have no leisure at all. Just to sustain ourselves, our condition has become almost like those ancestors who used to go every day out in search of food. Now the work, you know the work field. It's very unpredictable. You don't know whether you are going to retain your job tomorrow. It has become just like as if those ancestors who had no certainty. So the civilization has taken us to such a situation where every day we have to work hard to earn our livelihood. Just the bread which sustains me, for the bread and butter, I have to work from morning till evening. So this is the Kali Yuga which Sri Ramakrishna is speaking of. In this situation, where is the question of spiritual practice? That Jnana Yoga, where you have to totally detach yourself from the world, sit in meditation, constantly think that you are the Atman. It needs an intense practice, and that takes you to Samadhi. In this age, who will sustain you? Where you need to just work so hard to just earn your bread, your livelihood. Then what's the way out? Bhakti Yoga. That as I don't have exclusive time for practicing Jnana Yoga, but I can practice one thing. That I am just the instrument in the hand of the divine, I am his servant. This world is his, it is his plan. It is he who is working through me to sustain his own creation. I am just the instrument. I am devoted to him. Through all my work, I am aware of the presence of the divine. God is, I am his instrument. All my work, I offer it to him, to the divine. So in spite of all the work, by attitudinal transformation, by changing my attitude, I can convert my work into a spiritual practice which speaks of devotion. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. That when Vijay is stressing the need for Jnana Yoga, Ramakrishna finding that his temperament is towards Bhakti Yoga, through from various paradigms, he is trying to just convince him that no, Bhakti has a great role to play in our life. Not only this a great role to play, for most probably it is our only option. So now again we read those lines, you will find how nicely we can relate to it. The path of knowledge is very difficult. One cannot obtain knowledge unless one gets rid of the feeling that one is the body. In the Kali Yuga, the life of man is centered around food. How can you get rid of the body? From morning to evening, just to earn your livelihood, so much labor you have to go through. No spare time. So how can you just think that you are not the body, you are not the mind, you are not the senses? It's very difficult. So you cannot get rid of the feeling that is the body and the ego. Therefore, the path of devotion is prescribed for this cycle. This is an easy path. You will attain God if you sing his name and glories and pray to him with a longing heart. There is not the least doubt about it. Suppose you draw a line on the surface of water with a bamboo stick. The water appears to be divided into two parts, but the line doesn't remain for any length of time. The servant eye, or the devotee eye, or the child eye is only a line drawn with the ego and is not real. So Sri Ramakrishna again is saying that, as we were saying, that eye with which we relate to God through devotion is qualitatively and quantitatively different from the I with which we are attached to the worldly pursuits of life or worldly obsessions. It's so different. This I is liberating. It takes us spirally upwards to liberate us. So though the I is there, but this I is not the deep engraved I of the worldly man. It's just like trying to draw a line in the water. As long as that line stays, this ego also is like that. It is something very, very it's like a flow. It's something very transient. It's transient. It's not going to stay with me through eternity. It will vanish. So it's just an appearance. It's not the real, that strong I. It's just an appearance. So suppose you draw a line on the surface of water with a bamboo stick. So the water appears to be divided into two parts, but the line doesn't remain for any length of time. Just immediately it vanishes. It appears and it vanishes. So he's saying the I of a devotee is just like that. The servant I or the devotee I or the child I. See, all the three, which is saying the servant I, the devotee I, and the child I. What these three I? In these three I, the idea is, as Sri Ramakrishna in other contexts says, Nahang Nahang Tuhu Tuhu. Not me, but thou. Though you are thinking of yourself, but what? The servant thinks what? The master is everything. I am nothing. The child is totally dependent on the mother. So it is the mother, not me. The devotee is also, it's God. He is doing everything. I am just the instrument. So in all the three things, though you are aware of your I, but you are constantly annihilating that I. And in place, you're placing the divine. In place of your limited I, you're placing the divine. Your ego is being constantly washed away by the existence of God. So that's why he's saying that this three type of attitude towards God is something which helps us to eradicate our I. The I which remains is just an appearance. It as such has no adverse effect, ill effect in our life. So this the ego of the devotee. Now Vijay asks, sir, you ask us to renounce the wicked I. Is there any harm in the servant I? Master, the servant I, that is a feeling, I am the servant of God, I am the devotee of God, does not injure one. On the contrary, it helps one to realize God. So, how it helps us to realize God? That as we were saying, that the servant I, because constantly it is what? It is just thinking that God is everything, I am nothing. I am just the instrument in the hand of the divine. So this itself speaks of annihilation of I. As that wonderful conversation of Swami Ramakrishna with a devotee. Ramakrishna did a tremendous work when he was in Chennai. It was almost impossible for a person to undertake so much of work. He established so many centers in the south. Throughout the day, he used to work so hard for the propagation of the message of Sri Ramakrishna. So seeing him working so hard, when some devotee told him that how is it possible for you to undertake so much of responsibilities? It is almost superhuman. And Ramakrishna this reply was wonderful. He told, I am just a pen in the hand of the divine. An author is writing books after books, voluminous books he is writing. Can the pen ever take the credit of all these books which has been written? No, he is just a pen in the hand of the author. It is the author who is writing. So here you will find the moment you think yourself as an instrument, the ego has fallen off. The question of ego doesn't remain there. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying, this servant I in no way is going to harm us. As in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna instructs Arjuna, Nimitta Matra Bhava Savya Sachir. Just become an instrument. What you are doing, you need not have to renounce that. You need not have to stop that. Go on with all your actions. But just change your attitude. Be aware of the fact that it is the divine who is working through you. You're just an instrument in the hand of the divine. And that speaks of annihilation of the ego. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. The servant I, there is a feeling that I am the servant of God, I am the devotee of God, does not injure one. On the contrary, it helps one to realize God. If a man truly feels like that, then he has only the semblance, the appearance of lust, anger, and the like. If after attaining God, he looks on himself as the servant or the devotee of God, then he cannot injure anyone. By touching the philosopher's stone, a sword is turned into gold. It keeps the appearance of a sword, but cannot injure anyone. So this question is a question of appearance. That the sword made of gold is more for as an ornament. It is not used for harming others, killing others, injuring others. So similarly, Sri Ramakrishna is saying the ego of a devotee, it appears as an ego, because still the idea that I am God is, that ego is there. But that ego, the devotion of love, as we were saying, that the devotion of that love for God, this devotion, this obsession cannot coexist with other obsessions. The other obsessions are like traveling through the traffic road. This is like passing through the free road. Once I get the free road, I never traverse through the traffic road. So what happens? This road becomes intense. The other road may be there, but it has, just like, to give an example, suppose I used to walk through a particular route in the park. As I follow that particular route every day, the grass gets dried up and a road is created. And then I change my course. After a few months, I start taking a different route. So now a new road will be formed, but as I am not traversing through that old road, the grass grows there. Maybe a little, just someone can find out that some road was there, but it is almost covered by the grass. The road no more remains, as I am not traversing there anymore. The same thing happens with the mind. If you are not traversing the old path, they start getting closed up. That I becomes very much attenuated. The I related to the worldly things becomes attenuated. And this I related to the God with devotion, that becomes deeper and deeper. That groove becomes deeper and deeper, making that love more intense. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that if you have to go towards east, you cannot push the west. You have to traverse towards the east. The more you go towards the east, the west automatically falls behind. So other desires all become attenuated. They just remains just as an appearance. With that, no harm can be done. The more you start loving God, as we were saying, it is always at the cost of all other obsessions. They cannot coexist. All my worldly love can coexist. If I love a particular delicacy, it can coexist with the love of some new delicacies which I have love for some delicacies which I have developed. They can coexist, but love for the divine cannot coexist because they are qualitatively different, as we have discussed, we were discussing just now. So this I, the old I, that remains just as an appearance. The more we develop love for the divine, and that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that if a man truly feels like that, then he has only the semblance of lust, anger, and the like. If after attaining God, he looks on himself as the servant or the devotee of God, then he cannot injure anyone. By touching the philosopher's stone, a sword is turned into gold. It keeps the appearance of a sword, but cannot endure. When the dry branch of a coconut palm drops to the ground, it leaves only a mark on the trunk, indicating that once there was a branch at that place. In the like manner, he who has attained God keeps only an appearance of ego. There remains in him only a semblance of anger and lust. He becomes like a child. A child has no attachment to the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. So, with the help of now this love for the divine is sattva, and the worldly love speaks of rajas and tamas. So with the help of this sattva, the divine love, I get rid of the rajas and tamas. But once I attain the divine, then all these three gunas I transcend. Sri Ramakrishna is to give a wonderful example. It is just like plucking out a thorn with the help of another thorn. Kata diye kata tola. That a thorn, I was passing through a forest or jungle, and accidentally I stamped over a thorny bush, and a thorn has pierced me. So how to get rid of that thorn? I pluck another thorn from the same bush. With this, I get rid of the first thorn which has pierced me, and then I throw both of them. So sattva is like the second thorn. Rajas and tamas is like the thorn which has pierced me. The devotion of divine helps me to get rid of all the worldly attachments. But at last what happens? Intense devotion takes us to samadhi. Just like in Jnana Yoga, by thinking constantly of our real nature takes us to that samadhi. Here, thinking of God, when it becomes really intense, it takes us to the state. What happens? To understand it, you can understand it very easily. That what happens, how it takes us to samadhi. That when my love for the divine becomes very intense, all things, because it creates a tremendous focus, all things starts falling off. You will find, even what to speak of divine love, even a man who is a painter, who is an artist, when he is absorbed in what he is doing, you'll find everything has fallen off. Anyone calls, he doesn't listen. The sound is entering his ear, but is not getting connected to the mind, because mind is focused in something else. So the more we are focused through love, all things starts falling off. The last thing to fall off is the ego. Our ego is always there, occupying a part of our mind to make us aware of my limited individuality. It is always there. But when my love for the divine becomes so intense, the focus becomes so intense, that the small part of the mind which is always attached to the ego, that also is taken away with my love of God. And then what happens? If the ego is not there, you become one with the object of your meditation. Very nicely it has been spoken of in our scriptures that what is samadhi? It is called triputi bheda, the collapsing of the triad. What is the triad? That even when I am meditating, very intensely I am meditating, nothing is disturbing me, still three things remains distinct. What's that? That I am the meditator, such and such object is the object of meditation, and meditation is the process which is connecting these two, the meditator and the object of meditation. Dhyana, dhyata, dheya. So what it speaks of, that ego is still there. I am meditating, that idea is still there. But when my meditation becomes so intense, the focus has become so intense because of intense love, everything has started falling off. At last that ego also is taken away. Then there is no more distinction between me and the object of meditation. I become one with the object of meditation. And that speaks of falling off of the ego that has fallen off. So just see, through devotion also you can get rid of the ego. Such a person goes beyond. Now it is the ego with which all the three gunas are related. So now that as we were speaking with your meditation, you went beyond all the worldly obsessions, and it made you fixed with the love of God. And a time came when you become one with the divine, because the idea that I am meditating has fallen off. So the ego has fallen off. You are now one with the divine. So the question of devotion is no more there, because you are one. Devotion comes only when I am, God is, and there is a relation between the two. But when intense meditation makes me one with the divine, then for the time being, even the question of devotion has fallen off. I'm just one with God. But from that state again I come back. Just in our ordinary state, before now and then we get focused. But my focus is broken by the distractions. Similarly, in that state, when I become one with the object of my meditation, but my subconscious mind is full of God consciousness. So this God consciousness breaks the state of identity. It again brings back. But now once you have went to that state, and then again you come back, your ego is almost has been annihilated. It may be there just like a trace. So now you will find that such a personality has gone beyond the traits of sattva, rajas, tamas. That all the traits which defines us, he has gone beyond that. His personality is no more can be defined by all the three gunas. For us, if we are very lazy and torpid, we can say that he is a very tamasic. He is very active. We can say he is rajasic. Someone is very contemplative. We can say he is very sattvic. But as he has already attained that, you will find that nothing can define him as such. He becomes like a small child. In a small child, you will find just now it's busy with his certain thing. It appears that he's playing with some toys. It appears he's so attached to it. That's the example Sri Ramakrishna will give. And suddenly you take him some very trivial thing and just show it to him, he will leave his toy and he will become busy with that. What it shows, though it appears that he is attached to the things, but actually he is not. That it is very easy to distract him into something else. So because he is not as such attached to any of the three gunas. He is yet to develop that strong ego by which he can characterize himself with any of these gunas. He has not developed. His ego is diffused. So a realized soul is almost having the semblance of that child. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. He becomes as quickly detached from a thing as he becomes attached to it. You can cajole him out of a cloth worth 5 rupees with a doll worth an anna. Though at first he may say with great determination, "No, I won't give it to you. My daddy bought it for me." Again, all persons are the same. Again, all persons are the same to a child. He has no feeling of high or low in regard to persons. So he doesn't discriminate about caste. If his mother tells him that a particular man should be regarded as an elder brother, the child will eat from the same plate with him, though the man may belong to the low caste of a blacksmith. The child doesn't know hate or what is holy or unholy. So what it speaks, as his ego has fallen off, he as such doesn't relate with anything. And another thing, when the ego falls off, it gets permeated with the divine. Once he gets identified with the divine, he starts seeing the divinity everywhere. So the question of distinction, holy, unholy, good, bad, all this falls off. Because he doesn't see the polarity. He sees the divine everywhere. As in the scriptures it has been mentioned, yatra yatra manoyati, tatra tatra param padam drishyate. So for a realized soul, whatever he sees the divine. The entire world gets just deified. It's a total world gets deified. He sees not the things, but the Lord as the essence of each and everything. So for him, all the polarities fall off. Because no question of hatred. How can the question of hatred be there? In the Bhagavatam, very nicely it has been indicated. When one sees divinity everywhere, the sameness everywhere, how can there be hatred? And then a very nice example, it has been mentioned. What's the example? That when we are having our food, accidentally our tongue gets bitten by our teeth. Who is to blame? Does the tongue blame the teeth? No, because the same identity, this idea, the idea of identity is there. It is the same me. It is my tongue. It is my teeth. The question of you and me doesn't come. It is the same personality which is permeating the tongue as well as the teeth. So whom I will blame? So the question of hatred falls off when I see the divine behind the entire existence. So the child's ego is just like an illumined soul's ego. The illumined soul becomes just like a child. All the so-called, that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that I is there, but it's just a trace, just an appearance. It in no way can harm him. So that's the discussion which goes on. So Sri Ramakrishna that will say that one can attain the knowledge of Brahman too, but following the path of bhakti, it is easier. So after this discussion, that's the conclusion he will be speaking of. So the discussion continues, which again we will take up in the next class. With this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskars.